I blame it on your terrible palate.
Just make that the teaser. Hello, everyone. My name is John Edwards. With me, as always, is Zeke Baker, and together we are the Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Say hello to the folks, Zeke.
Hello, salutations, good morning, good evening, good midday, wherever you may be. We're just thankful you are interested enough to hear what we have to say.
Wherever you are, thanks for making us a part of your day. And it is a big day today because we have two extremely important guests. You might have heard one of these guests before. Our friend from all the way up in Chicago, Ryan Lay, coming back to redeem himself after doing such a terrible job on the Stranahan's blind, getting everything wrong. Are you ready to step in the ring again today, Ryan?
I definitely am. After that epic night we had last night.
Epic
for your
fail?
Well, no, that epic fail. I'd like to do better compared to what I did a couple months ago. But after last night's epic pours for your birthday, Zeke and the dads, which we'll talk about, I'm excited to redeem myself.
Why are you getting ahead of yourself here?
I
just wanted people to say hello to you.
I'm just getting excited.
I know. He's very, very excited. Along with Ryan, we have Deshon Batts, who's here with us all the way from Louisville. And if you happen to drink Willet, you might know this man. He is even in a Willet shirt right now. That's how much he is a homer for the brand. Welcome.
Puts me in the mood.
I know. Thank you very, very much for coming. Some people might know Ryan from listening to other shows, but tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into bourbon, how you got into whiskey, what do you like about it, things like that, the normal gamut.
You know, I live right up the road in Louisville, Kentucky, and my first experience with, I guess, good bourbon was out of a trunk, believe it or not. I was in college, had the backpack, had the swill.
And what, did somebody just drive up next to you and say, "Hey, do you want to try something good?"
Yeah, I actually had to experience some Bookers, believe it or not. And when you come from Jim Beam White Label, experience Booker Barrel Proof out of a trunk is kind of a life-changing experience. So,
well, I'll tell you. I mean, I tell people what sold me to transfer to UK was I had Jim Beam White Label. I had too much of it. And I walked up on the floor, and I went to a UK basketball game, and I walked up and I was a little bit tipsy, and I saw the big UK on the floor. Kentucky just has a way of doing that to you. You might have a White Label, you might have Bookers, you might have back in those days, though, we were all drinking like Tornado, and we didn't even know what it was.
Guzzling it.
Just mixing it with Coke.
Yeah, Elmer T. Lee, Tornado, Pappy, all that stuff was just readily available, and we didn't know what it was. Well, thank you very, very much for making the drive down. We're very excited to have you here because both of you came here. It was Zeke's birthday on Wednesday. It was also the Dad's Drinking Bourbon 1-year anniversary. So, whoa. Zeke, we had some people over, and it seemed to be a pretty good night from what I saw.
We did. It was a good time. There was no pretenses about it, no expectations, admissions, etc. Just show up, bring what you think is a fun pour or pours, and let's just have a good time. The Nashville bourbon community obviously is pretty solid. We just don't all find a way to get together enough, and we did our best to make that happen. And lots of great guys came out, and even better was even more great pours happened.
And we got people from out of town. I mean, we got Ryan and Deshon here. Luckily, you have a place for them to sleep. And
the couch.
Yeah. Well, you get a bed. Come on.
5-star. 5-star. That's what I get to sleep on. 5-star.
Do you guys actually have to give him a rating on Airbnb when you come to
No, it's
house?
Just blocked off.
It's just blocked off. I want to see what the rating would be if they actually had
the linens are fine. They are.
Zeke, people don't realize it. I mean, Zeke has soaps out for you guys here. It's like a hotel.
It's wild, especially when you wake up in the morning and Zeke's there frying you up some eggs. I just wish you'd put some pants on while he did it.
Yeah.
Hey, nothing's better than frying Becky naked.
Yeah. And he is drinking Lagunitas Willetize
yes.
while he's doing it.
At room temperature. I give it.
Yeah, I got to tell you, when you guys invited us down for the birthday party that we had last night, you're like, oh, okay, everybody just bring a bottle. Nothing too crazy. We're looking for store picks, things that we might not have here down in Tennessee. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to be the one that brings a cool bottle, right? So I've got a Stagg, a GTS that I'm going to bring down, and we're going to open it on the day of the birthday party, right? I get down here, and everyone's obviously thought the exact same thing and had my let's just put it this way, the George T. Stagg was low on the totem pole.
Lost in translation.
Did anybody drink it last night?
Nobody drank it. I think I drank the majority of it. I was like, again, when it is the low man on the totem pole, you just shake your head and said, I tried forcing it on people. I'm like, did you have 2017 George T. Stagg yet? And everyone was like, yeah, I've had that. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, when people come here and they bust out a 27-year-old Willet, we went through a lot of the epic Willets that were in the 10 to 15-year range. We had somebody brought a JPS 16.
There was 320s. There was 3 20-year Willets.
Or older. Mm-hmm.
Or older, right. And so then we had, I think, 7 other 10 to 18-year Willets.
Well, and Deshon, you brought the old granddad. What year was that one?
1989.
1989 National
We had
Distillers.
a 77 turkey.
Brent, Bourbon Connection brought the 77 turkey.
CGF.
It was Zeke busted out the cheesy gold foil. I think it's like one of those things when you're with your wife or significant other and you tell them we have to go someplace and we have to be ready by 9:30. We really might not need to be ready by 10:30, but you're telling them 9:30 just with the expectation that people are going to shoot
earlier.
So what we're thinking there is if we say store pick, we know what the community is like, but then if somebody came, I didn't want somebody, and Zeke didn't want somebody that if they came and all they had was a store pick, we didn't want somebody to feel like they would be left out.
No.
If that's all they brought.
And there was some great store picks that, as we've already discovered, have beaten out some of the Pappy line, some of the BT, the BTAC line. Store picks are the wave of the future, and I fully support that.
So, are you saying store pick or private pick? Ooh. Is there a hierarchy here?
From what I understand, private picks are number 1, and then store picks are just the leftover barrels that are coming down the pipeline.
Do you believe that to be I think it really comes down to, this is something that we could talk about for hours, right? But it comes down to, do you want the brand profile? Or do you like something a little bit different? Do you like something unique that not everybody can get? Or are you looking for something that is on profile or off profile?
Well, you always want to try and get on profile, but I think that anytime that I know somebody who actually picked the barrel, I want that pick. Just because of me knowing them and knowing that they have a good profile like Deshon.
But if it's on profile, then why don't you just buy the bottle at the store?
I'm not sure that everybody has the same good profile.
I'm messing with you right now. I'm sorry. Just don't worry. Last night was just, I am humbled. Zeke, I don't know how you feel, but the community, there were a lot of people that didn't even know each other that got together. There were people that had only talked on Instagram previously or through Facebook or had seen each other like, hey, I've seen you in a group somewhere. Your name is familiar. But the generosity and just the community aspect of it never ceases to amaze me in the bourbon community every day. And I have a question here for Deshon, who is coming into Nashville blind. I mean, you know some of us here. You didn't know everybody at the party. How crazy was it to be able to come to that and just meet people and talk to people? And Nashville is a pretty welcoming place, isn't it?
Yeah. You walk into the room and you notice that there's a bunch of bourbon geeks. So you immediately cling to that. But you notice that everyone was talking to someone they might not have known. They didn't even know their name, but they had a common interest. And I felt that was just above and beyond what I anticipated this birthday extravaganza would be. It was more of kind of a testament to this hobby, this niche, where you can get a group of guys who don't even know their names to get get together, brotherhood, and have a good time. I really enjoyed it.
I think people do that about Game of Thrones too, though.
Yes, Game of Thrones is definitely we could do that too.
We could sit there and talk about Game of Thrones for a while.
I can do Game of Thrones any day, but even any night.
And we lucked out, Zeke. Thank you. I mean, I know we are a team, but thank you for providing the place to host it.
It always means the most to pull people together and put names, faces, bottles together, and that's where it's at. I mean, everybody talks about, have you had this? We all message random people. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? But then, let's all taste all these together. That's a whole different experience and a whole different level of just, hey, we finally put some pieces of the puzzle together and had a good time.
And I think it's something that we'll do more and more as time goes on. But alas, we are 10 minutes into this thing, and it's about time we talked about drinking something. So what are we doing tonight? We are going to put George T. Stagg up against Colonel E.H. Taylor, up against Stagg Jr. in a blind. Now, what we did here to make things a little bit different is that there are a lot of different proofs of E.H. Taylor, and there's a lot of different proofs of Stagg Jr. Now, we had those first. Now, Zeke and I can already tell you from our 2017 year in review and what we've done, we have had a lot of Colonel E.H. Taylor barrel proofs, and we think that the 128.1 is the best one. So we have decided to put that one up. We had not done that against Stagg, so we had a lot of prep for this show. What we did is we put a Stagg Jr. that is 129.5. We had 130 proof. We had a 131.9 proof and a 132.5 proof. As you guys can tell from probably listening to my voice, I am still not at my A game. So this call to the bullpen is brought to you by Dad's Drinking Bourbon. And we brought in two people, in Deshon and Ryan, that are going to kind of be my tasters. I have tasted these so that I can talk about it with you guys. But let's talk about the 129.5, 130, 131.9, 132.5, and we'll let everybody know what proof we actually got down to before we put this in a blind. So Ryan, you go first. Give us your quick and dirty tasting notes on these and the one that you like the best.
Not a problem. So what I'll start off with is I'll go lowest to highest, and we'll start off with the 129.5. For me, I'm just going to go over what the taste was. And to me, that 129.5 was very sweet. There was a bit of a candy corn taste to it. And the 130 had some cotton candy. It was sugary. It was a little thin on the finish. 131.9, it was a bit of a green apple. It didn't have all the sourness that some of those young green apples have, a touch of floral. And then the 132.5 was probably the thinnest to begin with, but hottest on the back end with a lot of spice, touch of cinnamon.
So which one did you like the best?
It's still a toss-up, 129.5 and 130, I would say.
Deshon, which one did you like the most? Give us a little bit of tasting notes on that.
On the 129.5, I got sweetness on the nose, dark fruit on the palate, a little bit of cherries, all around, pretty good pour. On the 130, it was oily up front, balanced, long linger on the finish. 131.9, I got a little chocolate on the nose, bright fruit, and that a testament to the sour apple taste on the palate. And the 132.5 was by far the thinnest and the spiciest. It kind of built and spiced. It was almost overwhelming. So for me, the 130.0 checked the boxes. It was oily, it was balanced, it had linger, it had good fruits. For me, that's the one that I landed on. It was really close between 129.5 and 130, but the 130 won out for me.
Zeke, last but certainly not least.
Let's see, I have 129.5, nose light astringent, then heavy dark fruit, some black cherry, a little bit of juicy, palate, dark cherry and raisin, somewhere in a blend, maybe apricot on the backside. Finish, basically just a continuance, but nothing exceptional. 130.0, pretty astringent on the nose, then really frou-frou. Not dark fruit. And by that I mean like juicy fruit versus like dark chocolate over some strawberries or cherries or something.
I love hearing a guy from North Georgia go, not very frou-frou.
I will textbook and find the definition of frou-frou when we get done.
It's out there. Palate wise, I actually thought it was soft and built up pretty well. but even as it builds up, it's still lighter than darker of a fruit flavor. Finish, I just put down it was the same as the 129.5 to me. Just a continuance of what the palate was. Didn't last anything exceptional, but it was there.
I'm just going to call BS for a second, by the way. I'm going to stop you because I want to let you know that Ryan Lay was so worried about his showing last time that while you're sitting here giving your tasting notes right now, Zeke, he grabbed the 128.1 E.H. Taylor and he was going to pour some in a glass.
He's going to take a pull.
Sniff it.
Listen, I don't want to mess this up again, especially when I say that 128.1 is one of my favorite bottles of last year. And now we're doing a.
He's gonna like Stagg Jr.
We haven't got there yet.
I know, but I just wanted to make sure that what I wrote down was correct.
You missed it. Don't worry.
And podcasting is an audio medium, so for those of you that can't see, he just tried
hung my head in shame
to just sneakily
stealth.
He tried to be stealthy, but he wasn't, and he just grabbed it. And he was pulling it towards him. And I know, Deshon, you were looking at him. You knew what he was doing.
He was going to take a pull.
But I pointed at him and I said, put it down.
Just don't want to be wrong on all of them again.
Hey,
sorry,
I'm going to set the bar low. Trust me.
All right.
This was a tough tasting. It was.
Zeke, we interrupted you. We were rude. But which one did you like the best?
Well, I'll finish out by saying 131.9 I thought was lighter fruit than 129.5. Much more orange or citrus. Overly warm, less flavor, but the finish was actually bitter. Probably the only bitter finish I could get out of the four. 132.5. Nose was much more sugary, apples, maybe candied. Palate was warm, almost grapey. Finish just faded, but it was really warm. And my notes probably don't reflect this as much, but it was just really warm. And all these are high proofs, but that one just stood out as being a heater for whatever reason. I don't mind high proofs, but that one was a little too hot versus the flavor it needed.
I know my nose isn't working as good as it should, so we're not really trusting my palate and my nose this week. But what I would say is I did make sure that I tasted all of these as well. I found the 132 was a little bit too hot. It was just too much. It didn't. And that had been the one that I had for a while. It was open for a long time, and it was just still really
that's what
hot.
was even more interesting was the other three, other than that one, were fresh pops. That one had just been opened, and it was still just a little too much.
And I've had that open for months and months and months.
It was a rocket ship.
Yeah, and I just really expected that to mellow out at this point, and it was just still really hot. I still even tried to sniff these. I don't think there's a lot of variance on the nose if you're trying to look for differentiators here. The 129.5 and the 130, I think, are pretty close to each other. The difference is that the 129.5 is going to have a little more fruitiness, a little more flavor. I think for our experiment here, the 130 is a little bit more balanced and might lend itself to the difficulty that Ryan is finding himself in at this point. The same thing with you, Deshon.
Yes, it's difficult. I agree.
But if we're looking at just a rating of the Stagg Jr. side by side, you could give me that 129.5 or you could give me that 130. I would be happy.
Content, for sure.
And I love higher proof stuff. I love the stuff that's over 130, but for the purposes of this experiment, given what everybody just said, we have taken the 130 proof Stagg Jr. and we have put it up against a George T. Stagg from 2017. We've also put it up against the 2017 release of the Colonel E.H. Taylor 128.1 proof barrel proof. All right, guys, let's do the tail of the tape here before the fight. The 2017 George C. Stagg is mash bill 1. The suggested retail is $90. although you might find it a little bit higher in stores, and you will find it anywhere from $350 to $400 right now on secondary. It is 15 years old, distilled in 2002 from warehouses CK&M at Buffalo Trace. The proof is 129.2. An interesting fact is there was 309 barrels that were used to make up this year's batch, which was the highest yield that they've ever had of GTS at over 30,000 barrels. If you think about that, what makes up the small batch versus a single barrel, they have mashed together 309 barrels to make up this batch. It's pretty accessible this year. I think that makes it pretty interesting. I still wish I got a bottle, but Ryan at least is a good enough guy to share. People didn't want to drink it last night. We'll drink it tonight. Stagg Jr. is also mash bill number 1. It is $49.99. Age is about 8 to 9 years. We did try the 130.0 in this tasting. Also know that this is mash bill number 1. The Colonel E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof is also mash bill number 1 of Buffalo Trace. The age is around 6 years. It will go $70 to $80 depending on where you find it. Secondary on this one might be around $110 to $120. So that is the tail of the tape. What we are going to do here is we're going to take a quick break. We're going to let everybody taste these blind, put down their notes, put down their guesses. When we come back from this, Zeke is always really good with that tape recorder, so he's going to press it. We're going to fast forward through this. You're going to hear a sound. We'll come back out of that. We'll see what everybody's guesses are. After we go through the guesses, which I know Ryan's a little bit scared about.
But ready.
After we go through those guesses, everybody will talk about what they had, what those tasting notes are, but guesses first, and then we'll talk apples to apples. So Zeke, go ahead and push that button. All right, we are back. We have taken some time. We have given this blind tasting the respect that it deserves. And I think, Deshon, you were saying while we were in the break that you love us and hate us right now because this has been a little bit of a challenge. I don't think you were expecting this.
Yeah, this is going to totally ruin my reputation in the bourbon industry, like that matters, the secondary. But, after the weekend that I've had, some on social media, it's been pretty epic weekend. I think this was one of the toughest blind tastings I've had in a long time.
And normally you're used to putting together some big Willets side by side.
Willets, whatever. But this was mind-boggling in some aspects, is how similar these pours were.
What was it?
All I want to say is welcome to the Thunderdome.
One man.
3 blinds.
So what was it that made it so tough about these 3?
Well, age is just a number, both in real life and in bourbon. And then proof is deceptive. But these were all within, 1 or 1.5 points of being exactly the same proof. Age, guesstimation, 8 to 15 years and, 7 years. But that's not a huge margin when you're dealing with barrel proof, cask strength type product. It can be very deceptive. So it's really tricky.
So Deshon, that is a very, very good point. If if age is deceptive, we know these are all the same mash bill. What I would then come back and say is, what are the differentiators then that would make what justifies spending the highest amount on George C. Stagg and the lowest amount on Stagg Jr. And maybe that's what we're going to find out in this tasting. But what are the differentiators between the 3?
I think what it comes down to, and with most whiskeys, it's going to be personal preference. Now, when you throw that dollar factor in, it's like, wow, why am I paying $400 for a Stagg? Why am I paying $80 or $100 for a barrel proof, or $60 or sometimes $100 for a junior? That personal preference on the palate, the what stands out to you, what you seek, is what's going to differentiate value versus flavor, especially in this tasting for me.
But what do you think, Zeke, first, and then Ryan, what do you think is going to make the difference between these three bottles?
There's plenty of factors. It all goes into placement, wood, etc. I mean, those are the two most. If nothing else, even what was going on the day it was distilled. Plenty of people will tell you that rickhouse placement may or may not factor into things. But Four Roses, for example, plenty of people that know well more than you and I, or I will speculate this table does, will say the date distilled matters the most, not where it was placed in the rickhouse.
I agree with that, and I disagree with that at the same time. Like, if you think about how Booker's came to be, Booker realized that if there was the certain part of the rickhouse where the barrels were shinier, depending on where it was, he knew that that's where the water was, that's where the guys were standing and actually kind of taking the dust off the barrels. So there are, and that just happened to be the center cut of floor 5, there are those variables that come into play that only intrinsic tribal knowledge of the distillery is going to get you. And then there's other stuff on that we just know something that's higher up is going to get more heat. Something that's lower down is going to be colder.
Possibly have a window that if the barrels have a window near them, that the light is shining on them.
What's the
10
age
hours,
of the wood
right?
that was put in the barrel?
The amount of times that the rickhouse was actually visited.
Yeah.
I mean, I know.
That's part of it.
I know for this weekend alone that even Deshon and I, we've sat back and have already discerned that we have two very different palates.
Very different.
And so I think that's one of those things where we look at the junior, we look at the EHT Barrel Proof, we look at the Stagg Senior, and we just go, what do you prefer? And then, like he had already mentioned earlier, that it all depends on what your personal preference is. So it's gonna be interesting to see what everybody comes up with.
So what do you, real quick before we go into this, there's a bunch of variables that could come into play here. We talked a little bit about those. It could be where it is, the wood. It could be, how many times it was visited, all that fun stuff. We're going to get into the tasting, but Deshon, let me ask you first. What do you look for when you do a tasting? What is appealing to you more so than anything else?
I'm very simple. Bourbon is not simple. Every batch has its own DNA, but I look for, does it have a good nose? Does it have a palate? And does it have a finish? Then I follow up, what are the special characteristics that I get out of a taste, out of a bottle? Then I start adding those additional pluses and minuses. That's what I look for. I like caramel, I like chocolate, I like what every other guy likes, but I start there. I start with the basics because there's so much stuff out there.
That sounds more complex than even me. I mean, one of the reasons that I was so good at track and football and those things, it was John C. Ball, John throw metal ball, John C. metal disc, John throw metal disc.
I thought the reason you liked ETL originally was like unsweet tea. I mean, you are from the north. And it is essentially unsweet tea.
Very true.
I gotta take it
With
where I give
Splenda.
it to.
With Splenda, might I add.
Oh, maybe.
I just think ETL is it's surprisingly complex.
Surprisingly.
Sorry for the noise.
It surprised a lot of people.
He's gonna stick to his home base.
I mean, at this point now, I like his hat. The man knew how to wear a hat. Bear Bryant had his hat. Elmer had his hat. Just like Booker had his hat. So, you know what?
It's okay, John. We still love you.
It's the bald head. I like a guy that wears a hat. Ryan, what do you look for when you're not? What are your tasting notes? What do you look for?
Yeah, no, I think the biggest thing that I look for, since I've gotten with a lot of different friends that actually, enthusiasts, I would say, that have become friends that enjoy bourbon, they have gotten me into nosing more bourbon and whiskey. I'm a guy that's like, you know what, I'm just gonna swirl it around. Yeah, it looks good, similar to wine. I'll take a quick sniff. I'll roll it around my palate to see what I taste. And to me, I still kind of do that. I take a little bit more time. I know Deshon sits with a glass for a good 5-10 minutes, and he's swirling it around and looking at it and is commenting on the color. And my sample's half gone. And he's like, what did you do? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm drinking it. Like, what are you doing? And he's like, you just.
And might I add to that is I look for an experience.
Well, see, my experience is being with everybody drinking. Deshon has a intimate relationship with the bourbon that he is drinking, and that's what I'm getting taught.
Love is a real thing.
So to me, it's the flavor profile when I am actually drinking it that I look forward to.
Clearly, I know who was Little Spoon here this weekend.
Just make that the teaser.
Right. Essentially what you're saying is you're looking for a bourbon that's going to hold you and tell you everything's going to be okay.
Exactly.
Zeke, what do you look for?
I don't look for anything. I look for a good time.
No note on the pillow, just a good time.
No, obviously I have my preferences, but I try to never be subjective. Anybody wants to offer me a pour, I'm not going to say no. And, if I get something out of it, I'll say what I get. And it is what it is. That's the fun of it.
Well, and I think that's the thing why I like picks and why I like these things that are unique that you can't really get, like Willet and things like that, because, and I'm not just saying that because both Zeke and Deshon are here, but I can go to the store and get an Eagle Rare, and I know what that's going to taste like. I can go to the store and get an Elmer T. Lee. Well, I can't do that anymore, but I used to be able to go to the store and get an Elmer T. Lee, and I know what that's going to taste like. But these picks and these other things, they're experiences that you don't necessarily have. Putting a George T. Stagg, a Colonel E.H. Taylor, and a Stagg Jr. together and doing a blind tasting on it, that's something you don't get every day. And that's what we're all about. So, before we ramble too much, and I'm not apologizing for that, it's good discussion. Let's go through the guesses. Ryan, we're going to make you go last. So, Deshon, you go first. You tell us what you think you had, and then we will talk about the tasting notes. But tell us 1, 2, 3 what you thought they were and which one you like the best.
I'm not going to bet on myself, but number 1, I had Stagg. Number 2, it was a toss-up between 2 and 3, believe it or not, between Stagg Jr. and E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof. I'm going to go ahead and go with Stagg Jr. And number 3, E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof.
You were very worried about what your results were going to be.
Very worried. Wetting myself worried.
Wetting yourself worried.
Yes.
You thought that you were going to lose respect in the bourbon community.
I don't know if I ever had any respect, but that doesn't matter.
I would say, and I know you guys are being modest, but you and Zeke are people, you got to follow the tags, right? So when something comes out and someone immediately tags Deshon and Zeke and says, what are your guys' take on this? There's a couple other people that we know, but I mean, me even just being an outsider in your world, when the tags go up immediately for you, that's high praise. And that's a lot to live up to, isn't it?
Yes, very much so.
So this is really tense for you right now, and I'm making it worse, aren't I?
Yeah, I'm sweating profusely, honestly.
Well, you can rest easy.
Okay.
Because you got them all right.
Thank you.
Which one did you like the most?
Number 1.
Oh, I think that's obvious because what I will tell you during the break is Deshon asked for more. He asked me to fill up his blinds again. I know what everybody's blinds are. They are in all different orders for everybody, but I did not partake in the blinds, although I did taste these, so we can talk about it in the tasting section. Great job, Deshon. Welcome to the Thunderdome. You passed with flying colors.
Thank you.
Zeke.
Thank you.
We move on to you. What were your guesses? And what
You
were
want
your
guesses
answers?
or notes or just guesses?
Not notes yet. We'll get to notes.
Guesses, I had 1 as the Junior, 2 as E.H. Taylor, and 3 as Mr. George T. Stagg.
So you have big shoes to live up to in the bourbon community as well, don't you?
Hey, if I miss, I miss. I'm just telling you what I thought.
Well, which one did you like the most?
GTS. Number 3.
Well, good job. I'm very proud of you. But number 1 for you was George T. Stagg. Number 2 was EHT Barrel Proof 128.1. And number 3 was the Stagg Jr. 130.
At least I called out the EHT.
Yeah, I mean, I think stags are going to have a similar profile, and we know that things were. I can't. We are messing with Ryan so much on this show. Zeke, at least, I mean, it brings back, and it's something that Zeke and I did previously when we were just doing Instagram Lives, is we put Stagg Jr. up against a stag. And I think this one was much... I think, Zeke, we were a lot different on this one because we did try all the stags first. And I think putting it up against that 2014 stag, which is what we did before, that 2014 stag was really, really good.
I mean, honestly, I don't really feel bad about results.
I don't think you should.
I think I picked out the EHT, which you prefer. I don't. I make it known I don't. And I got EHT on it heavily. 1 in 3, hit or miss, but either way, that they had a staggish to them.
Let's talk about the tasting notes here in a second, because let's get to Ryan. Ryan, I know this is making you really sweat it out.
I
think he ran away.
My palms are sweating right now because prior to this, if anybody has listened to the Stranahan's podcast, I got all of them wrong. Asked Zeke prior to if he had mixed them up separately comparative to all the same, and I got them all wrong after hearing what everybody has done, and now I've heard what everybody's done, and mine aren't exactly in the same order that everybody's is. So I don't necessarily want to say what mine is, but we're going to go with it because we're going to press on. So my first guess is the GTS. My second guess is the 130 Stagg Jr. And my third guess is 128-1. Go on, John. Tell me what the guesses are.
Man, that's like having a Ron Lay show.
Which one did you like the best?
I don't want to tell you, John.
Ryan is never going to do another podcast.
Did you like any of them?
Again.
I loved them all equally.
No.
Naturally.
No.
Well, I'm telling you.
Which one did you like?
Which one did you like? There's nothing wrong.
Number 1 I liked the most.
Okay.
And it wasn't because it was GTS. It actually had a weird cherry.
Well, it wasn't GTS.
I figured that. With all the laughter. I liked it number 1 because I got weird cherry. I'm giving you tasting notes, at least on number 1. It got a honey and graham cracker taste, and I liked it. And I thought it was E.H. Taylor at first, but I changed my mind, and I thought it was GTS.
I feel like he's like the water boy. Like, Mama said alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth and no toothbrush. I'm never coming to school again.
I'm telling what these are. I'm writing them down.
Number 1 was 128.1 EHT.
Well, which is actually great because I told you that is my favorite bottle, and I actually like the more.
We just
George
killed
Stagg.
your bottle, so
I got 2 more.
Number 2 was George T. Stagg.
Oh.
Number 3 was Stagg Jr.
That is awesome for me.
Even
if I got it wrong,
I'll trade you the rest of your Stagg for a 128.1.
no.
I mean, you liked it the best.
I certainly did.
And you only have. I mean, you probably. We put a good dent in that bottle. You sure you don't want to trade?
No.
Okay. Let's talk about differentiators. Let's talk about tasting notes. We'll go through them all. Let's talk about the George C. Stagg first. Mm-hmm. I'll kick it off and say, even though I was not a part of the blind, I found I could tell the George C. Stagg because it had an oilier mouthfeel than the other two. What really set it apart is it was a little bit thicker. Deshon could probably back that up because he immediately said, I know which one the George C. Stagg is.
Yeah. Number 1, George C. Stagg. It had the caramel, had the balance, had the spice, vanilla, and for me, it had the tail sign. It had just enough oak that showed the age. That's what stood out for me.
Yeah. So Ryan, tell us about number 2 because that was really your George C. Stagg. Whatever, I forget what you thought it was, but
Sure. It was what I thought to be the Stagg Jr.
Okay, but tell us your tasting notes on number 2.
I thought it was a little sweet. I put thin. I put thin as what I got. I thought number 1 was a Stagg, but again, we didn't know what any of these were as a blind, so I put sweet, I put thin, I put sugary. Again, I already made up my mind that number one was the Stagg, so I said everything else. When we're doing these blinds, I have to be confident in what I believe it is, and I don't want to be wishy-washy about it. So as soon as I thought it was the Junior, I said this is what it's going to be.
No, and I honestly had the same thoughts. For what I thought was Junior was my number one. Notes, very simple. Apples and astringency. Palate warm, light fruit. Still some astringent. Finish. The alcohol just lingered much more than the fruit, as opposed to 3, which I thought was George T. Stagg, which was just very dark, sweet, very deep to me. Palate, layers of dark, warmth just built, but it was not hot. And for a finish, it was just dark cherry once the evaporation occurred.
And listen, we're having fun with you, Ryan, but I think the interesting thing, and what I would say, and this is why our whole thing is hashtag rethink how you drink. I think what you did, if I were to put some psychology here, is you found the one that you liked the most, rather than thinking about what are the characteristics of each one
in a subjective way.
And then you looked at it subjectively to say, I like this one the most. This must be George T. Stagg. Mm-hmm. And when you put those 3 together, saying that, I know that's what you did. I mean, it's one of those things you don't necessarily need to even tell me. You could just say, yeah, but I wouldn't hate you for that, and I wouldn't get down on you for that, because you just looked at what the best, quote-unquote, best bottle on the table was and assigned it to the best taste profile you had.
I totally agree with that, but I want some backup here that originally I had said that 128.1 prior to this blind was better than Stagg. I just, for me, I don't always trust my level of know-how of the bourbon that I'm drinking, because I'm still new. I'm still 2 years in of really trying, some of the epic pours, so to speak, or the bigger pours at least. And so when I try something, I'm like, well, I think 128.1 to me is a little bit better. But when I've got Stagg on the table, you go, I do decide that maybe Stagg Senior is the better pour, and I just don't know all that much.
Might I add that there's one factor that we're forgetting in this, and there's that toss-up, that 50-50 group, but airtime.
Yeah.
Between how long these bottles, individuals in this tasting and just abroad, how long the bottle's been open can really play a factor in what you perceive in your mind and what you taste. Because for me, I've got them all right, but it was a struggle, because the Stagg Jr. that I picked out, or the Stagg that I picked out, does not taste like the Stagg that I've recently tasted, my own personal bottle, because my bottle's been open for 3 months.
And we just cracked that one yesterday.
And the 128.1
was cracked today.
Was it the 128.1 E.H. Taylor Barrel Proof?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's been open for the last 5-6 months.
Yeah, so that's what made it tough for me, because I remember the first time I opened the Stagg, it had, it wasn't really roped in. It wasn't hooked up. And I attribute that to like the Stagg Jr. The Stagg Jr. is a cowboy bourbon. You're along for the ride. So between the 3, it kind of really gave me a mind confusion. So I wouldn't be ashamed at all.
And equally to that note, as someone that's not an E.H. Taylor fan, I think it just stands out to me like my notes. Nose, dead, E.H. Taylor copper. I don't necessarily know what that means, but to me, it's the copper.
You don't know a lot of what you put down sometimes. Though. You're like, I'm getting sassafras.
To me, it's the copper that every E.H. Taylor has, unless you let it sit open forever and a day and a half. There's just something about what goes into it that I can pick up. I don't know.
Well, and you hate. And not to keep interrupting.
I don't hate it.
No, but you hate a fresh pour of EHT. When we give, when we have something open that's a small batch or a single barrel, you can definitely tell when it's a fresh crack opposed to something that's been open for a little bit.
I don't know. I mean, just like the profile notes I have. Very simply, palate, cinnamon bomb, builds up, lots of tannins. Finish. By the time you work that thing, it just gets hot, and then it just fades out. Like to me, that's every single EH Taylor, whether it be small batch, single barrel, barrel proof. They all are just true to form, so to speak. And I mean, it's what it is. I'm not knocking it, but it at least is consistent.
You have any other notes, Ryan?
Yes.
He loves lamp.
You know, since
I
I got
chair.
them,
I love desk.
Since I got them all wrong again, it's hard to give the tasting notes of what I had.
So let's take a step back here, because I think you're down on yourself, and you shouldn't be, because Zeke got 2 of them wrong. You know, Deshon happened to get them right. I probably would have got some wrong had my nose worked, but it ultimately goes down to the whole goal of what we're trying to do, and the whole goal of what people really should be doing. Because you might go run out, say somebody goes on secondary,
Yes,
and buys that George C. Stagg for $350 to $400.
Yeah,
all hype.
And
yeah,
and people see the name, and they don't necessarily know that the 2017 Stagg is going to taste different than the 2016 Stagg, taste different than the 2015 and the 2014. You just see the name. You really have to try some of these things first, especially once you get to a higher tier.
yes.
So you are hitting home exactly what we're trying to get at, to say don't just blindly go in and think
And buy on the name.
absolutely
Yeah,
going to buy
exactly.
something on the name.
Learn more about yourself,
Yeah.
your personal preferences, and cling to that before you follow the masses.
Well, and I think even like I said earlier, prior to this, I had tried a few of my friends' George T. Staggs, and I had said previously that the 128-1 was, in my opinion, better than the Stagg. And when you do it blind, blinds don't lie, and that's exactly what happened today. I just said, I mean, I didn't just say it was the Stagg was my favorite. But my favorite was the number 1, which was the 128-1. I assumed it was the Stagg because I'm not confident in my palate. Am I able to discern which one is better yet? So,
But I hope this gives you more confidence. Even though you didn't get them right, what it's doing is it's reaffirming. It's like you're going in and you're doing a multiple choice question.
Yes.
And you know the answer is A.
yes,
And then you're sitting there looking at it and saying, what if it's a trick question? What if it's really B? And that's what you're doing. But the answer, you know the answer's A.
right. And you know what? I can't wait because these 3 bottles are mine. So we'll be able to, or I'll be able to at least blind myself later to check out whether 129.5 is not mine, or whatever it is.
No, this is 130.
Oh, it
It's
is
yours.
130. So I'll be able to do this again, and with some airtime, because as we already talked about, depending on how long these have all been open, we just opened the 130 today. We opened the Stagg Senior yesterday at the Epic Pour, which nobody drank out of. So I'll be opening a 128-1 when I get home, and I'll be able to give everything
It was
some
never
airtime.
opened.
Yeah.
But Ryan, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we like you. You're not afraid to fail. You're not afraid to go in and try things, and let's talk about it. And I think that goes to the importance of the people that you're actually talking to, right? And I'll go to Deshon first and Zeke, because I know you two talk to each other a lot about, Willet things that might come out, other things that you try. You found that your palates are pretty similar. Is it just about finding people that have similar palates, or is it about finding people that have a variance of palates?
I don't necessarily look for guys that like the exact same things I like. I like variance. I like difference, because it keeps me humble. It keeps me focused. It keeps me searching for that next good pour. I've learned that Ryan doesn't have the same palate that I do. Zeke and I have, I call almost a symbiotic palate. If Zeke likes it, I'm like, I'll just buy it, kind of deal. But I like the fact that I meet Ryan. He doesn't like necessarily what I like, but that'll keep me searching. Like, maybe I'll find another bottle that I would not gravitate to, but I'll try it.
Maybe you'll like 128.1 more than Stagg.
No. That will not happen. But it's okay. It's okay. I appreciate that.
And I appreciate it because then you can send me off to the bottles that you will not buy and that I should buy. So it's very easy there. We're not going to be competing for that.
So is the moral of the story is there's enough space on the shelf for everybody because everybody's palate's different?
Oh, easily. I mean, it's fun. Like, you make good friends, which first and foremost is by far the best thing ever. But B, you talk, you divulge, you both taste things, whether you send out some samples in the mail or you're together, you eventually learn each other's palates. And then you really start to, all right, I can trust his opinion even when he tells me, no, it was crap. I dumped out 3/4 of the pour, but you're going to like it, which sounds almost obnoxious. But once you get to that point with somebody, that's where you understand, all right, I need to buy this, not that, and or explore these things. But it's just such a better level of understanding and just, I guess, camaraderie and whatnot.
Well, I think the moral of the story here is that the thing that makes bourbon so great is community. And we are very, very appreciative both to Ryan and Deshon for coming down, spending the weekend with us, being here for our 1-year anniversary. So thank you guys for coming. It was a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. Appreciate it.
We hope you come back again. This has been a lot of fun. Zeke, do you have anything to say to the folks before we go out?
I mean, I think by Ryan's 4th tasting, he's going to get one right.
I think he'll get one right at some point.
4th tasting.
He is 0 for 6 right now.
4th.
No, I think we had 4, didn't we?
Oh, no, I'm at the 4th time here.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, no, 4th time.
Oh, no,
I got
you're
one
0 for
more.
7. You're 0 for
thank
7.
you.
This is on the 2nd trip. I'm saying by the 4th, I got confidence.
Soon.
But he has had 7 different pours, and he has got all 7 wrong.
Listen,
So he is 0 for 7.
listen, hopefully next time, but definitely the 4th time, I'll be ready.
Yes.
Statistically, you should be.
We'll put moonshine in one of the cups.
As long as I do it eyes closed, I should be able
Exactly.
to discern which one that
Oh,
is.
no, eyes closed, you're not going to know.
Well, stay tuned. Ryan will come back at some point. Hopefully, we'll get Deshon back as well, and we will see how they do again. But in the meantime, find us on Twitter at Bourbon Dads. Find us on Facebook at Dad's Drinking Bourbon. Find us on Instagram at Dad's Drinking Bourbon. You can also find our podcast on Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, Podknife. We're trying to get on TuneIn and Spotify as well. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll do that. But Zeke, where else can they find us?
Nashville, Tennessee.
We thank you all for listening to us. Come back again and see us soon. Cheers.
Bye.